The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly, dark and silent. Stars flickered like distant candles, scattered across the infinite black. The Velrune Empire's listening station orbited a lonely, lifeless planet, one that had long been abandoned and considered useless. Yet it was here that the Velrune had positioned their most sensitive deep space receivers, designed to pick up even the faintest signals from the far reaches of the galaxy. It was a quiet day, quiet for a Velrune day at least. The hum of machinery, the low chatter of technicians, and the occasional metallic clang of tools were the only sounds that broke the monotony. Commander Threx, a veteran of countless space campaigns, stood in the observation bay, eyes fixed on the holographic display before him. The station's sensors were scanning sectors of uncharted space, data flowing in as endless streams of numbers and shapes. Then, a flicker appeared on one of the screens. "Commander," a junior analyst said, her voice breaking the quiet. "There's a repeating signal in Sector K42. It doesn't match any known patterns in the galactic database." Threx leaned forward. The signal was faint but deliberate. It pulsed every 90 seconds, a steady rhythm that suggested intelligence behind it. "Show me the spectrum," he said. The analyst brought up the readouts. The shape was strange, unlike any life form, star system, or energy signature the Velrune had ever encountered. It was too uniform to be natural, yet too large and complex to be a simple satellite or probe. Could it be a derelict ship? One of the engineers asked cautiously. Something left over from the wars of the old empires? Threx shook his head. No, the density is far beyond anything we've encountered. Even from 1,000 kilometers away, this object is registering at levels that suggest active systems. It isn't dead. Whatever it is, it's sleeping. The room grew tense. The Velrune had encountered advanced life before, but nothing like this. They were a proud species confident in their technology. Yet something about this signal made the hairs on the back of Threx's neck stand on end. Remote probes were immediately prepared, small and nimble devices capable of passing through the debris field surrounding the object. As the probes moved closer, the station's sensors began to reveal more details. The object was massive, far larger than any warship the Velrune had ever built. Its shape was angular, efficient, and terrifyingly simple. No markings, no decorations, nothing that suggested culture or personality. "Commander," the lead scientist said, voice tight. "The hull, it's resistant to all known scanning frequencies. We can barely penetrate the outer layers. It's unlike any alloy or composite in our records." Threx's eyes narrowed. "Then what's inside?" "We don't know," the scientist admitted. "There's energy within the core, faint but definitely active. And we're detecting unusual electromagnetic pulses, almost like signals being sent out in short bursts." The room fell silent. Every Velrune present sensed the same thing, that they had found something that was not meant to be found. Something dangerous. Something intelligent. Then the breakthrough came. One of the junior analysts, working feverishly with code decrypting software, managed to isolate a small fragment of the object's outer signature. The data scrolled across the screen in an alien pattern, lines and shapes that no Velrune language had ever produced. And then, after long seconds of scanning and translating, a single word appeared. Terran. The word hung in the air like a cold gust of wind. No record in the Velrune database mentioned this civilization. No known empire, no lost colony, nothing. It was as if the universe itself had kept this name hidden, waiting for someone to stumble upon it. Threx felt a strange chill. "Terran," he whispered. "We've never encountered them." The analysts exchanged nervous glances. Curiosity battled fear in every mind. The Velrune had explored countless sectors, interacted with dozens of intelligent species, and survived wars that had torn galaxies apart. Yet this was different. The decision was made to tow the object closer for study. Specialized tugs designed to handle massive structures were activated. As the tugs latched on and began the slow process of moving the massive object, the station's sensors began to detect something unusual. "Commander," one technician called. "The object is..." "Responding." Threx turned sharply. "Responding how?" "There's movement in the hull. Small shifts, like mechanical adjustments, and the electromagnetic pulses are increasing in intensity." The room erupted into controlled chaos. No one had ever seen an inanimate object react like this. Ships, asteroids, even living colonies could be scanned safely. But this was something else. "Keep the tugs at a safe distance," Threx ordered, voice firm. Do not make any contact. Just observe. Do you understand? Yes, Commander, came the chorus of replies. As the Velrune watched, the object slowly adjusted its orientation. Its angular plates shifted, almost like limbs flexing in a stretch. Sensors detected power surges emanating from deep inside. For a brief moment, the entire observation deck held its collective breath. It felt as if the object were aware, watching them back. The station's AI tried to identify communication patterns, but every attempt failed. The pulses did not match any known method of speech, whether auditory, visual, or electromagnetic. Yet the cadence suggested intelligence, deliberate thought, even if they could not comprehend it. What is it thinking? An engineer whispered almost to himself. Threx did not answer. No one did. The truth was terrifying. They had no idea what it was thinking, or worse, what it might do if provoked. Hours passed. The Velrune continued their careful observations, documenting every pulse, every energy fluctuation, every shift in the object's massive hull. And as they worked, unease settled over the station like a heavy fog. Every minute that passed, the object seemed more alive. Then, as if to announce its presence, a subtle vibration ran through the observation deck. Not enough to damage equipment, but enough to be felt. A reminder that whatever this ship was, it was more than a heap of metal and energy. The junior analyst, unable to contain her curiosity, finally asked the question everyone was thinking. Commander, what do we do if it wakes up? Threx leaned on the railing, staring at the spinning stars reflected in the object's dark metallic surface. He did not answer immediately. He knew the answer was terrifying. The Velrune had weapons capable of destroying planets, fleets that could obliterate entire sectors, but this was beyond them. Finally, he said, "We do what we always do when we meet the unknown. We watch, we learn, and we hope it does not see us as a threat." Yet deep down, Threx knew it was not hope that would protect them. It was caution, and even that might not be enough. As night fell on the distant, lifeless planet below, the station's sensors continued their relentless scan. The Terran warship remained still yet alive, shrouded in mystery. It had been waiting for centuries, drifting in silence. And now the Velrune had found it. Somewhere deep inside, the object pulsed once more, a faint signal, almost imperceptible, a heartbeat in the void of space. The Velrune did not know it yet, but this moment would change the galaxy forever. The Terrans were coming. The massive object, now clearly identified as a warship, continued to drift in the void, silent yet alive. Its angular metal surface reflected distant stars, giving it an almost ghostly glow in the blackness of space. The Velrune scientists and engineers on the listening station were still recovering from the shock of discovering that this ship was not just alive, but actively resisting analysis. The sense of wonder was slowly giving way to unease. Commander Threx called an emergency meeting in the station's central hall. The room was dimly lit, with the glow of holographic displays casting shadows across worried faces. Every seat was filled with analysts, engineers, and scientists, all of them experts in their field, yet now staring at a problem they had no experience solving. "We have to be extremely careful," Threx began, his voice calm but carrying weight. "This is unlike anything we've ever encountered. Our probes have barely scratched its surface, and the hull material is unlike any alloy or composite known to the galaxy. It resists every attempt to penetrate it. It is not only advanced, it is intelligent. It knows we are here." Murmurs rippled across the room. "Commander," one of the senior engineers asked, "if it's intelligent, why hasn't it attacked us yet?" Threx paused, weighing his words. "Because it doesn't see us as an immediate threat. But we cannot rely on that. It may simply be waiting to see what we do next." The lead scientist, a calm and precise individual named Thal, stepped forward. "We should try a new type of scan. Not the usual energy pulses, but something subtler. Something that doesn't trigger its defenses. We might be able to gather more information about the internal structure without alerting it further." Threx nodded. "Do it, and keep the tugs at maximum safe distance. I want no sudden movements that could be interpreted as aggression." The team set to work immediately. They modified one of the probes with specialized sensors designed to map internal structures using low-level neutrino emissions, an advanced method that could penetrate the hull without triggering its apparent defensive systems. As the probe moved slowly toward the ship, the room fell silent. Every eye was glued to the holographic display, showing a three-dimensional outline of the Terran warship. The probe transmitted its initial readings. The outer layers of the hull were dense and unyielding, but deeper inside, the sensors picked up something remarkable. Within the core of the ship, there appeared to be multiple energy nodes, all interconnected with an intricate network of circuits and conduits. Unlike the simple linear designs common in Velrune warships, this network branched and twisted in patterns that suggested not only complexity, but also adaptability. "It's alive," Thal whispered, almost to herself. "Not biologically, but the systems are self-organizing. It adapts to threats. Every attempt to probe deeper is met with resistance." Threx leaned over the console, staring at the swirling holographic lines. "This is a warship," he said. "But not just any warship. It's built for survival on a scale we've never seen. Look at the redundancy. Every subsystem has backups, and many have backups to the backups. This ship was built to withstand the impossible." The tension in the room grew. If the Velrune had any doubts about the danger they faced, they were gone now. They were dealing with a vessel built for war against something far greater than anything the galaxy had seen in centuries. Hours passed. The probe continued its slow journey, and the scientists analyzed every byte of incoming data. Then suddenly the ship reacted. The holographic display showed subtle shifts in the internal layout. Nodes moving, conduits reconfiguring, almost like it was aware of the probe inside it. "Commander," Thal said, voice tight. "It knows we are probing it. It's not attacking, but it is aware." Threx felt a chill run down his spine. "Keep monitoring. No sudden moves. Let's see what it's capable of." For the next several hours, the warship remained still, almost eerily calm. Yet every so often, small tremors could be detected through the station's sensors. Tiny adjustments in energy output, minor fluctuations in the electromagnetic field. It was alive in a way they had never witnessed before. Then came the most shocking discovery. One of the junior analysts, working through a complex series of decryption algorithms, found a repeating pattern within the ship's energy pulses. It was not random. It was structured, almost like language. The pattern repeated in cycles, hinting at deliberate communication, though the Velrune had no way to decode it. Threx studied the display closely. "Could it be trying to communicate?" he asked quietly. Thal shook her head. "We can't be sure. But it's possible. It's certainly intelligent enough to do so. We may be witnessing something far older and more advanced than we ever imagined." The room was quiet again, the weight of the moment pressing down on everyone. These were trained warriors, scientists who had studied countless alien civilizations, yet now they faced a force beyond comprehension. Night passed in the station. Though in space, night is a meaningless concept. Time was measured by cycles of maintenance and analysis. The crew worked tirelessly, documenting every shift, every pulse, every fluctuation in the ship's systems. Each new discovery was met with a mix of awe and fear. As the first light of a distant star lit the observation deck, the Velrune received another shock. The probe, deep within the ship's hull, had detected movement in what appeared to be the ship's core. Tiny mechanical structures previously unseen were shifting. They looked almost organic in design, like a skeleton of metal bending and flexing inside the ship. "It's adapting," Thal said, eyes wide. "It's responding to the probe. Every time we get closer, it rearranges itself. It's learning." Threx clenched his fists. "So it's aware. It's alive in a way we can't understand. And it's been sleeping out here for centuries, waiting." The implications were terrifying. If the ship was built to adapt, to survive, and to fight, then the Velrune had stumbled upon a weapon of unimaginable power. And yet no one knew where it had come from, who built it, or why it was in this forgotten corner of space. Threx turned to the team. "We need to consider every possibility. It could be a relic from a war that predates all known records, or it could be something the universe is still hiding from us. Either way, we must proceed with extreme caution. No sudden actions. No assumptions." The next several hours were tense. Every movement of the probe was carefully calculated, every reading cross-checked. The Velrune realized that even the smallest mistake could provoke the ship. Then, a breakthrough. The junior analyst discovered a fragment of data embedded in the ship's energy patterns. It was small, almost meaningless at first glance. But after careful analysis, one word emerged from the pattern. written in a code that seemed almost primitive compared to the ship's complexity. Terran. The word echoed in the room. No one spoke for a long moment, each person processing the revelation. Terran. Threx repeated slowly, his voice barely a whisper. We found a ship built by a civilization no one remembers, or perhaps a civilization no one believed could exist. Thal's hands trembled slightly as she continued to analyze the fragment. There is no record of Terrans in any archive. No history, no mention in any known war logs. It's as if they never existed. Until now, the room fell silent. The weight of history, or what was left of it, pressed down on every scientist and officer present. The Terrans were a mystery, a ghost civilization that had left behind a warship capable of surviving centuries alone in the void. Threx finally spoke, his voice steady but heavy with realization. Prepare the station for extended observation. We will not make contact. We will not attempt any aggressive maneuvers. We will simply watch, record, and learn. If this ship is as intelligent and powerful as it seems, any sudden action could be catastrophic. And so the station entered a tense period of observation. The Terran warship drifted silently, massive and unknowable, while the Velrune scientists and engineers documented every movement, every pulse, every subtle change. It was a quiet, terrifying vigil, one that left everyone with a sense of awe and fear they could hardly articulate. Somewhere inside the warship, deep within its complex network of energy nodes and mechanical systems, the Terran ship remained dormant yet alert. It was aware of the Velrune presence, yet it made no move to attack. It was a predator, waiting, learning, and observing in turn, and so, as the stars spun endlessly outside the station's windows, the Velrune began to understand the truth. They had stumbled upon something extraordinary, something ancient and something utterly beyond their comprehension. The Terrans were gone, but their ship had remained, and it was awake. The observation station had been monitoring the Terran warship for days. Every shift, every pulse, every subtle change in its systems was carefully recorded. The Velrune scientists and engineers worked tirelessly, scanning, probing, and analyzing. But the ship remained eerily calm. Yet the tension on the station was palpable. Commander Threx paced slowly in the control room, his eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the warship drifting silently against the black void of space. The crew had learned to respect it, to fear it, and yet to be fascinated by it. Every probe, every test seemed to elicit a reaction, subtle but undeniable. The ship was not inert, it was aware, and now it was beginning to show the first signs of awakening. The warning came quietly, almost imperceptibly. Small fluctuations in the energy field surrounding the ship began to ripple through the station's sensors. At first, the technicians dismissed it as minor interference, but then the pulses grew stronger, more coordinated. The warship's internal systems, previously dormant, were activating in a slow, deliberate sequence. "Commander," one of the lead analysts said, voice tight with tension. "The ship is powering up. The energy nodes we mapped are lighting up sequentially. It's awakening." Threx leaned closer to the console. He could feel a cold weight settle in his chest. "Alert the station," he said. "No one touches the controls except for the observation team. We are not engaging. This is purely observation." The Velrune obeyed, their movements precise, almost reverent. Everyone understood the gravity of the situation. They had stumbled upon a machine designed for war, yet it was unlike anything they had ever seen. The warship was enormous, its metal plates angular and seamless, its design terrifyingly efficient, and now, it was alive in a way that defied comprehension. As the ship's systems came online, a low hum resonated through the station's sensors, not a sound that could be heard, but a vibration that seemed to touch everything, machines, walls, and even the minds of those present. The Velrune could feel the power contained within the ship, a concentrated force unlike anything they had encountered before. "Commander," Thal said, her voice barely a whisper, "its power output is increasing exponentially. If it were to direct that energy outward—" She trailed off, unable to finish the thought. Threx nodded grimly. "Then we are already too close. But it hasn't attacked. Not yet." The first real sign of intelligence came moments later. The holographic displays flickered as the ship sent out a series of signals. At first they appeared random, but the analysts quickly recognized patterns. The signals were not hostile, they were analyzing. The ship was scanning the Velrune, scanning the station itself. Every probe, every sensor, every instrument was being measured and catalogued. "Commander," a young engineer said, "it's calculating. It knows we're here and it's figuring out what we are." Threx's jaw tightened. "Keep all communication channels open. No transmissions except for monitoring. We need to understand it before it decides we are a threat." Hours passed and the ship's systems continued to activate. Lights inside the hull glimmered faintly through the gaps in its plating, revealing a complex network of energy conduits and mechanical structures. The Velrune could see the intricate design of the ship, how each subsystem connected to another, creating a web of interdependent parts. It was a warship, yes, but also a living entity. Then came the most disturbing moment. The warship shifted slightly, turning a massive angular section toward the observation station. The movement was slow but deliberate, calculated with precision. Every sensor in the station went wild, registering changes in gravitational fields, electromagnetic pulses, and energy flux. "It's aware of us," Thal whispered. Her eyes were wide with a mixture of fear and awe. "It's watching, waiting, learning." Threx remained calm on the surface, but inside, his mind raced. The ship was intelligent, capable of understanding its environment and adapting in real time. Any sudden action, any mistake could provoke a response. And the response, he knew, would be devastating. Suddenly, the ship sent out a more intense signal. The Velrune monitoring equipment almost overloaded, and the displays flickered. For a brief moment, the signal resolved into patterns that resembled language. Not Velrune language, not any language recorded in their archives, but something structured, deliberate, and unmistakably intelligent. "Commander," Thal said, her voice trembling. "It's trying to communicate. I don't understand it, but it's definitely words of some kind." Threx studied the readings carefully. "Keep analyzing. Do not respond. We cannot risk provoking it." The station held its breath. The warship's sensors, whatever form they took, seemed to extend outward, brushing against the Velrune ships and the station itself. It was as if the Terran ship was feeling its surroundings, testing boundaries, assessing the situation without revealing its intentions. Then, the unexpected happened. A small probe, sent deeper into the ship's hull to gather data, suddenly lost contact. The feed went dark, then flickered back on, showing the probe being gently maneuvered out of its path. It had not been destroyed. It had been moved. Threx's voice was calm but firm. "Everyone, this is proof. It is intelligent. It is aware of our presence. It is not hostile yet, but it is clearly capable of controlling its environment." The room was silent. Even the youngest technicians understood the significance. They were not dealing with a mindless war machine or a derelict vessel. This was a ship with a consciousness, a will, and the ability to act independently. Hours turned into days. The Velrune station continued its cautious observation, collecting data, analyzing patterns, and attempting to decode the ship's signals. The warship remained mostly stationary, but subtle shifts in its energy outputs indicated it was active, alive, and thinking. One of the analysts finally broke the tension. "Commander, there's something else. We've detected fragments of its historical data embedded in its systems. Battle logs, fleet movements, wars we've never heard of. This ship has seen more than any civilization alive today." Threx's face grew serious. "This means it's more than a weapon. It's a survivor, a remnant of a civilization we thought was lost." The crew worked tirelessly to analyze the logs. Images of destroyed fleets, devastated planets, and human soldiers, bipeds seemingly fragile and unarmed, appeared on the station's displays. And yet in every image, the humans stood firm, determined and victorious against overwhelming odds. The room grew quiet. No one spoke. The reality of what they were witnessing began to sink in. These Terrans, though long gone, had created a warship capable of surviving centuries in the void, with the intelligence to understand, adapt, and potentially retaliate against any threat. Threx turned to his team. "Prepare for the next phase of observation. We will continue to collect data, but we will not make any contact. We are not here to test it. We are here to learn, and we must remember, we are guests in the presence of a being far beyond our understanding." As the station continued its vigil, the Terran warship remained silent, yet alert. It had awakened, its systems humming with power, its sensors scanning, its intelligence alive and calculating. The Velrune understood, perhaps for the first time in their history, the true meaning of caution. They were in the presence of something ancient, powerful, and intelligent. Something that could, if provoked, destroy them all. And deep inside the warship, unseen and unfathomable, the first traces of awareness began to form. The ship was no longer simply dormant. It was alive in every sense, and it was beginning to understand the Velrune presence, their curiosity, and the threat they represented. The realization hung over the station like a shadow. They were not merely observers. They had awakened something that had slept for centuries, and the galaxy, unknowingly, had just become a far more dangerous place. Days had passed since the Velrune first realized the Terran warship was awakening. The station's crew had grown accustomed to the quiet tension that hung over every moment. Every flicker of energy, every pulse, every subtle shift in the warship's massive hull was met with silent anticipation. They had become students in the presence of a machine far beyond their understanding. Commander Threx stood in the observation bay, watching the holographic displays showing the warship. Unlike the calm, distant scans of previous days, now there was movement. The warship's angular plates shifted with deliberate precision, revealing glimpses of its inner structure. The energy conduits inside glowed faintly, pulsing rhythmically like a heartbeat. "This is it," Thal said quietly, her eyes glued to the readouts. "It's no longer dormant. It's fully aware of our presence, and it's responding." Threx nodded. "Keep monitoring. Do not attempt communication. We observe only. Any sudden action could provoke it." The first act of active interaction came slowly, almost imperceptibly. The warship emitted a low-frequency pulse, a vibration that washed over the station's sensors. It wasn't harmful, not yet, but it caused minor fluctuations in power systems. Lights flickered briefly, and the hum of machinery wavered for a moment. The crew held their breath. "Commander," a technician whispered, "it's testing us. It's measuring our systems, seeing how we react." Threx didn't reply. He was already aware. This was more than observation. The Terran warship was intelligent enough to understand its environment and the capabilities of the beings around it. It was beginning to assert its presence, to let the Velrune know it was not merely a relic. Over the next several hours, the warship's activity intensified. Energy readings from its core fluctuated wildly, yet the ship itself remained stationary. Small sections of the hull rotated, and subtle mechanical movements were detected, as if it were adjusting its internal structure in response to the Velrune's scanning attempts. Thal leaned closer to the console. "It's adaptive. Every probe, every scan, every signal we've sent, it's learning from them and adjusting. It's not aggressive, not yet, but it's analyzing everything we do." The realization sent a ripple of unease through the crew. The Velrune were experienced in dealing with hostile civilizations, advanced warships, and deadly weapons. But they had never faced a machine that was alive in this sense, a machine that could understand, learn, and respond intelligently. Suddenly, the warship emitted another pulse, stronger than before. It moved through the station's sensors like a wave, causing screens to flicker and some minor systems to shut down temporarily. The crew scrambled to stabilize their equipment, but the warship did not attack. It was asserting dominance, making its presence known without violence. "This is deliberate," Threx said, his voice steady but heavy with concern. "It wants to show us its power without harming us, at least for now. It's testing boundaries." As the day turned into night, though in space the concept of day and night was meaningless, the Velrune continued their cautious observation. Every minor action by the Terran ship was meticulously recorded. The ship's adaptive systems seemed to anticipate probes, reroute energy flows, and even change internal configurations to counter any potential threat. Then came the moment that truly terrified the crew. A probe sent into the ship's hull for data collection suddenly transmitted images unlike any seen before. The internal layout was enormous, labyrinthine, and alive with activity. Not biological life, but systems that moved with precision and intelligence, almost organic in nature. Some sections resembled automated factories, others like control centers with unknown devices monitoring the entire ship. Threx leaned back, his hand on the railing. "This is not just a warship. It's a self-contained, intelligent entity. Everything inside is connected, adaptive, and purposeful. It's built to survive, learn, and respond to any threat." Thal's hands trembled slightly as she studied the data. "Commander, look at this." These are battle logs. Massive fleets, destroyed planets, entire civilizations, all recorded here. And the humans. They're in every image. Always standing, always resilient. The revelation left the room in stunned silence. They were not witnessing mere machinery. They were witnessing the legacy of an entire civilization, preserved in a warship that had survived centuries in the void. The humans, fragile in appearance yet indomitable in spirit, had created something that defied the natural order of survival. Hours later, the ship did something that sent a shiver down every spine in the room. A massive angular section of the hull rotated, aligning itself directly toward the Velrune station. The sensors went into overdrive, registering an unprecedented spike in energy output. It was not an attack, but the sheer force radiating from the ship was undeniable. "It's a warning," Thal said quietly. "It's telling us, stay away or face consequences." Threx nodded, understanding immediately. It's not just a machine. It's aware of us, assessing our intent and asserting control. We cannot underestimate it. The crew spent the next several hours carefully documenting every response. The warship emitted pulses, adjusted its internal structures, and continued to display the remnants of its internal intelligence. The Velrune were beginning to understand that this ship was not just a relic. It was a guardian, a sentinel of human legacy, built for survival and war beyond imagination. Then, the first direct form of communication appeared. A faint signal pattern emerged from the ship, structured and deliberate. Though the Velrune could not decipher the language, the intelligence behind it was unmistakable. It was attempting to communicate, to make its presence understood without resorting to violence. Threx studied the readings intently. It's testing us, trying to understand if we are a threat. Every pulse, every energy fluctuation is deliberate. It is learning from us as much as we are learning from it. The station remained in tense observation, every crew member acutely aware of the fine line between discovery and danger. Even the most seasoned analysts felt a growing sense of fear mixed with awe. They were witnessing a machine that had survived countless wars, adapted to every threat, and now observed them with intelligence that rivaled any sentient species. Suddenly, another probe sent to map the inner systems of the warship began to experience resistance. Motors slowed, sensors redirected, and the probe itself was gently maneuvered away from sensitive areas. It was not destruction, it was control. The ship was asserting authority over its own systems, protecting itself, and demonstrating the depth of its awareness. "This is incredible," Thal whispered, her eyes wide. "It's alive in every sense we can imagine. Every system inside is self-preserving, adaptive, and intelligent. It's not just a machine, it's a being." Threx's gaze did not leave the display. "And it's aware of every move we make. We are walking on the edge of something we do not fully understand. One wrong step, one sudden action, and we may provoke it." As the observation continued, the Velrune realized that they were no longer just watching a machine. They were interacting with an intelligence that had survived centuries, learning and adapting with knowledge and power far beyond anything they had encountered. The warship's subtle warnings and careful monitoring of their actions made it clear that it could strike with devastating precision if provoked. By the end of the observation cycle, every crew member understood the gravity of their situation. They were in the presence of something extraordinary, something ancient and immensely powerful, and while the ship had not attacked, its actions, its awareness, its adaptability, its silent warnings had made one fact unmistakably clear. The Terran warship was awake, and it was beginning to show the galaxy just what it was capable of. The days following the Terran warship's awakening had turned into an uneasy vigil for the Velrune station crew. Each sensor reading, each pulse, each subtle shift in the massive vessel's hull was scrutinized and analyzed, but the ship's behavior had begun to change. It was no longer just aware. It was actively interacting with its surroundings. Commander Threx stood at the central console, his eyes fixed on the holographic display that showed the Terran warship's every movement. Though the ship remained stationary relative to the station, its internal energy fluctuations had increased dramatically. Lights inside its hull pulsed rhythmically, and faint distortions in space around it suggested a concentration of immense power. "This is different," Thal said, her voice tense. "It's no longer just observing us. It's testing us. Every probe we send, every signal we analyze, it adapts. And now it's beginning to assert control over the environment around it." Threx didn't answer immediately. He had noticed it too. Minor systems on the station were flickering, communications were delayed by a fraction of a second, and small power surges ran through equipment. It wasn't harmful, not yet, but it was deliberate. The ship was demonstrating its capabilities. The first true active interaction came unexpectedly. One of the Velrune tugs, positioned to adjust the warship's orientation for closer study, experienced a sudden power drop. The engines stuttered, and the vessel began to drift slightly off course. The crew scrambled to regain control, but the warship did not physically touch the tug. Instead, its electromagnetic field subtly interfered with the tug's systems, proving it could manipulate technology without firing a single weapon. Threx's jaw tightened. "It's testing our defenses," he said, voice calm but firm. "Not attacking, not yet, but it's showing us it could." The room was silent. Even the most seasoned engineers and analysts felt a chill. They had faced aggressive fleets before, but nothing like this. A warship that could strike without moving, that could disable technology at a distance, that could assert its presence in a way that was simultaneously subtle and terrifying. For hours, the station continued observation. Every minor fluctuation in the ship's energy field was analyzed, every pulse recorded. And then the ship acted again. This time, a probe designed to penetrate deep into the ship's interior began to report anomalies. The probe sensors, which had previously recorded clear readings, now produced distorted, scrambled data. "It's controlling what the probe can see," Thal said, her voice barely audible. "It's blocking information, redirecting energy flows, even shaping the data we receive. It's fully aware of our actions." Threx leaned over the console. "This is more than defense. It's communication. It's showing us its capabilities without harming us. It's warning us, guiding us, and testing our reactions. We must remain calm and observe." As the crew continued their meticulous watch, the warship made its next move. A faint but powerful signal pulse radiated outward, not toward the station directly, but into the surrounding space. Sensors detected that the pulse temporarily disrupted distant Velrune vessels in orbit, slowing their systems slightly and causing minor malfunctions. Again, no damage was done, but the message was clear. The Terran ship was capable of influencing technology at a distance and could do so precisely. "This is incredible," Thal said, her hands trembling slightly. "It's showing us it can control space itself around it, at least partially. And it's intelligent enough to test without killing." Threx nodded. "Exactly. This is a civilization far beyond our understanding, and yet it does not attack us. That is a choice. We must respect that." Hours passed with tense silence. The crew carefully catalogued every pulse, every system adjustment, every subtle movement of energy within the ship. Then came a breakthrough. Using a series of complex decoding algorithms, the analysts managed to interpret fragments of the ship's signals. Though the full language remained incomprehensible, patterns emerged, structured messages that suggested intent and awareness. "It's observing us," one analyst said. "It's trying to understand who we are, what we want, and whether we are a threat." Threx ran a hand over his face, deep in thought. "And it has already determined we are harmless for now, but it is making sure we know it could destroy us if needed." As night turned to day in the distant planet below, the Terran warship's movements became even more deliberate. Angular plates shifted to optimize energy flow. Internal systems hummed with a growing intensity, and faint distortions in the surrounding space suggested immense latent power waiting to be released. The station crew could feel it. Even without understanding the technology fully, the weight of the ship's presence pressed on them. It was not just massive or powerful. It was intelligent, adaptive, and aware of everything around it. Then something extraordinary happened. One of the warship's internal energy conduits, visible through small gaps in the hull, began to project faint holographic images. At first, the images were abstract patterns of light, shifting and pulsing in rhythm with the ship's internal energy. But slowly they began to resolve into recognizable forms. Fleets of human ships, vast cities, soldiers standing resolute amid destruction, planets scorched and rebuilt. The room fell silent as the crew stared at the displays. These were battle records, history preserved in the ship itself. And in every image, the humans, small, fragile, seemingly ordinary beings, stood tall, unwavering, victorious against impossible odds. "It's showing us who built it," Thal said quietly. "It's telling the story of the humans. Their victories, their survival, their resilience. Every battle, every planet, every fleet, it's all here. Threx swallowed hard. They were more than warriors, he said. They were survivors. And this warship is the legacy of everything they were. It's built to endure, to protect, and to respond to any threat, no matter how overwhelming. The crew spent the next several hours observing the holographic records. Each image, each fragment of data, revealed the scale of human ingenuity and resilience. The Terrans had survived wars that would have destroyed other civilizations. They had built ships, weapons, and strategies beyond imagination, and this warship was the ultimate expression of that legacy. Then, as if to remind the Velrune of its capabilities, the warship emitted a pulse of energy that rippled outward, affecting all nearby systems. The station's lights dimmed slightly, communication slowed, and minor equipment malfunctions occurred. Again, no harm was done, but the demonstration was unmistakable. Threx's voice was calm but firm. It's reminding us. It's showing us what it can do if it chooses. We must remember that we are guests here, observing a power far greater than anything we have ever known. The crew nodded in silent agreement. They had learned the hard way that the Terran warship was not merely a relic. It was a sentient, adaptive, and extraordinarily powerful entity. It had chosen not to destroy them, but its capabilities were undeniable. By the end of the observation cycle, the Velrune had reached a new understanding. The warship was not just a machine. It was a guardian, a sentinel of human legacy, built to survive, to fight, and to protect. Its intelligence and power were unmatched, and its presence demanded respect. And deep within the warship, the systems hummed with quiet awareness. Every pulse, every adjustment, every display of controlled power was calculated, precise, and deliberate. It had assessed the Velrune presence, determined the threat they posed, and chosen restraint for now. The galaxy had been reminded of something that many had long forgotten. Humans, though gone, had left behind a force that could not be ignored. And the Terran warship, alive, aware, and infinitely capable, had begun to demonstrate that humanity's legacy was far from extinguished. The Terran warship had spent days awakening, observing, and subtly demonstrating its power. The Velrune station crew had come to understand its intelligence, its adaptability, and its ability to control the environment around it. But despite its immense capabilities, the ship had not attacked. It had observed, tested, and warned, but it had not destroyed. Commander Threx stood in the observation bay, staring at the holographic display. The massive ship, now fully awake, pulsed with energy. Its angular plates shifted slowly, deliberately, and its internal lights glowed rhythmically. The crew watched in tense silence. They understood that what they were seeing was not just a machine. It was a sentient being, capable of thought, choice, and action. "It's different now," Thal said quietly, her eyes wide with awe. "It's not just observing anymore. It's communicating, not with words we understand, but with intent. Every movement, every pulse, it's deliberate," Threx nodded. "We've learned much from it, but now we must respect its will. Whatever it does next will set the tone for how we proceed in the galaxy." For hours the warship remained stationary, yet its presence was unmistakable. The subtle distortions in space around it, the controlled pulses of energy, and the shifts in its internal structure all suggested a being that was calculating, assessing, and waiting for the right moment to act. Then, without warning, the ship emitted a powerful pulse of energy directly toward the Velrune station. The crew braced for impact, expecting destruction, but nothing happened. The pulse did not damage the station or any vessels. Instead, it formed a pattern, deliberate, precise, and impossible to ignore. The energy pulses arranged themselves into shapes on the holographic display, forming images of star systems, planets, and fleets. Thal's hands trembled as she studied the display. "It's showing us the galaxy, its power, its reach, and perhaps a warning. It's telling us what it can do, what it can affect if provoked." Threx took a deep breath. "This is the first time it has directly communicated its power to us. Not to attack, but to warn. We've been given a choice: leave peacefully or risk consequences we cannot imagine." For a moment the room was silent. Every crew member understood the weight of the situation. The Terran warship was not merely a relic of a lost civilization. It was a guardian, a sentinel, and a weapon of unimaginable power. It had chosen restraint, but the warning was clear. It could destroy them all if provoked. As the observation continued, the warship made its next move. It rotated slowly, aligning its massive angular hull with a vector that suggested departure. Internal lights pulsed one last time, sending a rhythmic signal across space. Though the Velrune could not understand the language, the intent was unmistakable. The ship was leaving. It's departing, Tal whispered. It's showing us mercy. It could destroy us, but it's choosing not to. It's leaving. But the message is clear. Do not follow. Do not provoke, Threx nodded solemnly. We have witnessed something extraordinary. The humans, though gone, left behind a legacy that none of us can ignore. This ship, this warship, is the final expression of that legacy. The Velrune station prepared for the Terran ship's departure. Tugs were disengaged, communication systems recalibrated, and sensors set to record every movement. The warship, massive and imposing, slowly accelerated. Its energy pulses spread through space like ripples in a pond, and for a brief moment, the crew felt the immensity of its power. It's leaving, but it's leaving a part of itself behind, one of the analysts said, pointing to the holographic display. Faint energy traces lingered in space, residual patterns that suggested memory, calculation, and awareness. It's not just moving. It's teaching us something, showing us what we should remember. Threx studied the traces carefully. It's leaving knowledge, experience, and perhaps a warning for anyone who might encounter it in the future. We must learn from this, not just as observers, but as a civilization. We are not alone, and there are forces far greater than we imagined. As the warship accelerated, it moved with a precision and elegance that belied its size. Every movement was calculated, every trajectory planned. It did not rush. It did not panic. It simply departed, leaving the Velrune station and its crew in silent awe. Hours later, after the ship had vanished from sensors, the crew began to analyze the lingering data. Every pulse, every energy trace, every holographic fragment was studied and recorded. The information suggested advanced tactics, defensive systems, and a form of intelligence that combined machine efficiency with strategy beyond comprehension. This changes everything, Tal said quietly. We've underestimated the galaxy. Humans, or at least what they left behind, are far beyond what we imagined. And this warship, it's proof. Threx remained silent, staring at the empty space where the ship had been. He felt a mixture of fear, respect, and awe. The Terran warship had shown them mercy, but it had also shown them their place. In a galaxy filled with unknown civilizations and forces, the Velrune were reminded of their own limitations. The crew slowly returned to their routines, but the atmosphere had changed. Every glance at the void, every sensor reading, every communication channel carried the weight of what they had witnessed. The warship had left, but its presence lingered, an unspoken reminder of the humans who had built it and the power they had left behind. Days turned into weeks, and the Velrune station continued its study. The warship was gone, but the lessons remained. Every strategy, every record, every trace of energy was analyzed, cataloged, and studied. The crew knew they had witnessed history, a moment that would define their civilization's understanding of the galaxy. Threx gathered the senior staff in the observation bay once more. We have been given a rare opportunity, he said. We have seen the legacy of a civilization that survived against impossible odds. We have seen intelligence, power, and restraint in a way we never imagined, and we must ensure that what we have learned is not forgotten. Thal nodded. We've learned that intelligence is not measured by size, strength, or firepower alone. The Terran warship is alive in every sense, aware, adaptive, and capable of mercy. That is the true measure of power. The crew worked tirelessly, documenting every detail, ensuring that the story of the Terran warship would survive. They knew that someday others might encounter similar forces. And when that day came, the lessons learned here would be crucial. Months later, the Velrune station remained in orbit around the distant planet, a quiet sentinel in the void. The warship was gone, but its impact on the crew and their civilization was permanent. Every decision, every strategy, every protocol was now informed by the memory of the Terran vessel. And somewhere in the depths of space, the Terran warship continued its journey, a silent guardian of a civilization long gone, yet alive in memory, power, and purpose. It left a warning, a lesson, and a legacy. The galaxy is vast. Intelligence can take many forms, and the humans, though gone, had left a mark that would never be forgotten. For the Vel rune, the message was clear: respect the unknown, study it carefully, and never underestimate the survivors of a civilization that refuses to be forgotten. The Terran warship had come, awakened, tested, and departed. It had left the Vel rune with fear, respect, and awe. It had shown them the meaning of intelligence, power, and legacy, and it had reminded the galaxy that humans, though long gone, were never truly gone. The stars stretched endlessly before the Vel rune, quiet and indifferent. But in one distant corner of space, the Terran warship moved on, carrying with it the spirit of a people who had survived the impossible, a reminder that power, intelligence, and will could endure even when civilizations fall. And for the Vel rune, and perhaps for the galaxy itself, that was a lesson they would never forget.